It's so good. Oh my gosh, I can't even handle it.
That is weird to like call myself like the mom rat. I was like,
Yeah.
like people don't know my name
Yes, but it.
How often do people say mom right?
all the time.
Like, I remember it was so much that you had to make a video on it.
Yeah, I did. I even put it in like my profile. It says like mom rat, like comrade, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I need you guys to get the pun to know
That
what I'm
instantly communicates a lot, by
That's
the
what I'm
way.
saying.
Yes, a lot.
You
Yeah.
need to know what I'm about. I'm trying
Uh-huh.
to make it clear.
Uh-huh. Yes. Awesome.
I don't know how I should open. The thing is, I was interviewing Garland, and that was my first one. And you can see through the video that, like, I slowly, progressively, my whole face gets red, which is the nice part about cutting it up in pieces because you can't tell that, like, the stress redness is like going across my face.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Tried to put on a thicker foundation, so maybe you could
Will
tell.
this be edited down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
You can edit out any of my. Awesome. Okay. Great. So.
Are we rolling?
Yeah.
I'm the mom rat, and I am here with Joanna Whaley, who is running for Michigan's 2nd State House District. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for doing it.
And welcome to Allen Park.
Well, this is so cute. I love this place. I love that the parking was easy to find.
Mhm.
Because every time I drive to the city, I'm like, am I going to have to find a structure?
Yes, and it's free here in Downriver. Remember that.
I just pulled right up there. I was like, yes, this is the best. Because that's what always stresses me about cities is like the parking.
Yes, so come here because the parking's free, people.
Parking is free, and the coffee is good for sure.
Not free. Yeah.
The coffee's not free.
Yeah.
It's good. Worth every penny. I don't know how much. So how has campaigning been so far?
It's been wild. It's been a wild ride. This is my first run. And, I'm learning a lot, but I think what I'm learning is how much this community is ready for public leaders who are present. And I think that's been the best thing about this is being present with the community. So we are a very active field campaign. And so that really, sometimes I really run on Red Bull and beef jerky is how I survive. But
Getting your protein in.
yes, that's the only way I get it in because, you're running in between events. But it's been going well. The community has been very receptive to our campaign. And there's been a lot of things in this district that really need leadership, and people are excited that someone's stepping into that void right now. Yeah.
So I know that you said that in your past life, you were an evangelical pastor, and now.
You took my line. No, I'm just kidding.
But that you, through speaking with people, offering them those services, that you kind of heard the needs of the community.
Yeah.
Prior to that, had you ever considered running for anything?
No, I think it's worth backing up because you kind of threw the punchline out there. So I'm a trans woman and I'm a former evangelical pastor, and that raises a lot of eyebrows right there, right? So I was brought up in pastoral leadership. Basically, from the age of 17, I started ministering in a large church, like thousands of people. Then I got a pastoral job at the biggest church in America. And so I learned, I always say this, I learned how to hear existential crisis and how to find it. And then once later in life, I got outed as a trans person in a church that I was working at as a pastor, got fired from my job. And I learned really quick that there's no protections within the religious space for queer people. And that's what began my work in a very niche space. I was doing LGBTQ rights within religion across the country. So I was doing a lot of work statewide, helping people navigate spiritual trauma and trying to be themselves and love who they love. So I was doing that, very, very, vigorously within the community. And I got invited to speak at a hands-off rally. It was back in April of last year. And they were like, we're looking for somebody to talk about LGBTQ rights and Christian nationalism. I'm like, I've got both of those for you. Really politics was not on my radar at all. Not on my bingo card, no thank you. But then I spoke at this rally and people in this community started asking me to run. And I'm like, no, I don't know if that's for me. But then, those conversations just kept going on, and it became really clear that there was something that I was trained to hear, was that existential crisis. And people were looking for leaders who can step into that and speak for them, even if they don't have the words for it. And so I think that's something really unique about my background and training, that is going to be really interesting, and I think is connecting with this community in a deep way.
For sure, definitely. I mean, it's I find that some of the greatest leaders are ones who never sought that out,
Yeah.
but it's sort of your life kind of finds that.
Yeah, this definitely. Yeah, as I said, not on the bingo card. Was not thinking about running for office, but
That cable is probably gonna put your phones on the table. I just don't wanna.
be professional. I'm talking to myself,
Just a bit.
yelling at me. Ah.
We're still good with you guys.
Okay.
So that's a very different life, a very different
Yeah.
background than a lot of people. And when it comes to your positions,
Yeah.
as far as things like healthcare, Palestine, things such as that, that people would consider progressive. I mean, when it comes to going from evangelical to someone
Yeah.
who looks as like progressive, would you consider yourself a progressive?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important. First, I'll say this: in our primary, I'm definitely the most progressive in our primary, and but I think it's important to know where I came from. You hear evangelical pastor, you can tick off the checkbox of everything I used to believe. Everything you think of when you hear that term is everything I was conditioned to believe. So I was a full-blown Christian nationalist. I was trained in what's called the Seven Mountains Mandate, which is basically, hey, Christians, don't come to church, just go take over society. And like that's what I was trained in. But what's interesting is, as I've evolved as a person in general, and I became honest with who I was and who I am, a lot of things started to fall into place for me. And a lot of it came out of my theology evolving so that I could see that not everything in the world was this evil disaster that had to be avoided, right? I started to see the beauty in the world. And I think that started to shift how I saw things. And I went on this evolution from like staunch Christian nationalist to like the most progressive person in a Democratic primary.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is that I feel that, I can speak the language of conservatives. I feel that I can help people see this thing that you've believed your whole life about, whether it's, how to operate the world or if it's public safety and where those problems come from. I feel that I know how to speak that language and bring people along in an evolution. And I get messages from people all the time in the district who said, hey, I was MAGA, like full-blown MAGA, but I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm with you. And we have MAGA people who volunteer on our, like ex-MAGA people who volunteer on our campaign. And I think that is something that's really interesting. So I'm definitely very progressive. You touched on a couple of things, and I'm sure we'll get into them, but Palestine, healthcare is a human right. Israel has committed a genocide in Palestine and in Gaza. And those things we just need politicians to clearly answer those questions.
Yeah.
And anytime you hear flowery, oh, well, no, like be clear. And those are the things that I'm going to do in this, in this new thing, this new adventure of being a public servant.
And I think with the climate of everything right now, people have eyes on politics like they haven't in a really
Yeah.
long time.
Yes.
And so it's even when I've done some interviews and I've gotten questions that weren't answered super directly or clearly, I had a friend of mine go, well, why didn't you push on this? And I said, the people see it. When you ask someone a question, they give you that fluff answer.
Yeah.
People aren't falling for it anymore. It's not enough
Right.
anymore. You have to be clear about your statements.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to eat you alive.
Yeah.
People want that realness, that
Right.
honesty, you know, and I've had other candidates like yourself say, ask me the hard questions.
Hmm.
You know, I'm here to give real answers.
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, Liz said, I'm going to throw you some easy. I was like, don't throw me easy questions. Just hit me with the hard stuff, and that's okay.
Well, the easy question was, how is your campaign going?
Yeah, that was the easy one. Thanks.
But, you know, and I don't mind anybody knowing that I send questions beforehand because I want you
Yeah.
to be able to give a full, developed answer.
Yeah.
Because I do this for people. I want voters to hear and fully understand. And it's like, if you give a
Yeah.
crap answer, people are going to know. But
Yeah,
you know.
well, a non-answer is clear nowadays. You're right. Like, as soon as you hear anybody on TV giving a statement about something, and it's just like, that's like, I'm not listening anymore. Like, I know what you're saying without you even saying it.
Exactly. They're picking up on it in ways that
Mhm.
I think that some of the people who have been in politics longer are sort of disconnected from the people, and so they don't see that. They don't understand. They're getting out there and trying to give these answers, and it's just not going over
Nope.
like as well at all.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when your evolution started, you know, coming from an evangelical perspective, was that difficult for your faith?
Oh, oh boy, we're going to be here all night. Yes. I should tell everyone that I struggled with the evolutions I felt I had to make. I knew at a young age that I was trans. I didn't have language for it. So of course I did what every, young trans girl does, becomes a pastor. Like, right, that's what you do.
Excellent cover.
Right, exactly. That my beard was being a pastor, I guess, but it's important to say that I was forced into 15 years of conversion therapy by my church. And I wrestled with my reality, the truth I needed to live into, and my spiritual journey. And that's why I have a lot of grace for people who are really entrenched in that kind of Christian nationalist, or this idea that like we are a Christian nation that has fallen away. I have a lot of grace for that language because I was there. And my hope is to show people that maybe, just maybe, the things you've been hearing from the pulpit are not the full truth. And I know that's going to ruffle so many feathers of people who are really entrenched in the Christian right. And they're never going to vote for me in the first place. But there are people who are sitting in church pews right now who are thinking, I'm not sure I'm buying what I'm hearing right now. And I want them to hear someone like me speaking their language and saying, hey, it's okay to change. And that change will cost you a lot. And my evolution cost me everything. It cost me my family. It cost me all my friendships. But what I gained on the other side was totally light years beyond what I ever expected. And so, yeah, it was a brutal, brutal couple of years. But I'm thankful for, the new friends and family and support that I've gained in that process.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hitting my regular tone.
Yeah.
And so I looked through your website, I looked through some of your positions, things like that. And one of the questions that people always have is that politicians come through and they say all the things that they want to do.
Uh-huh.
And it's always just like, well, we're going to do this. And there's never that understanding of the process. So, like, when it comes to utility bills,
Yep.
especially ahead of this storm, when it comes to utility bills and the processing fees that, like, DTE are adding, or is it consumers?
DTE here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, what is your plan in getting these bills lowered?
Yeah. I think it's important to understand that DTE is guaranteed a 10% profit from the state of Michigan by law. First thing I'm going to do is draft legislation to end that guarantee for them. We need to close the loopholes because we don't have a choice of who we are getting our energy from,
Right.
right? When I buy a house or I rent a house, I am required to have my utilities hooked up and have service with them, right? I don't have an option. So the thing is that these companies, the reasons our rates keep going up and up and up is because they're guaranteed a rate. So of course they can charge us a $3 fee. Who is that for? It's not for their profits, it's for the shareholders. And it's not for us. If I go to a gas station and my gas station all of a sudden on a Monday or on a Monday starts charging me a $3 fee, I've got 25 other gas stations I can go to. It's like, you know what I'm saying? I can't do that with my energy company. So we need to have some stronger regulation against these companies. So for me, it's going to be making sure we are removing the loopholes that they get. It's time for them to get off the boob and act like a real company, right?
Yeah.
And if they're going to have the sole market in a district, then they're going to have to just play with the big boys because they're the only ones, right?
Right.
So that's my goal, is to make sure if you're going to be the only player in town, then you're going to play like a business. So if you make a bad investment, guess what? It's going to come off your profits and it's going to come off your shareholders, and you're not going to bill us anymore for it. And so that's where we need to have controls about how much they raise rates year over year. So these are some of the more specific things that I'm going to do, but really it's going to be trying to take this baby that is, well, really a teenager off of the boob of the state and say, look, you're a monopoly. You're going to operate within, like, we don't really have many other options other than you. So it's time for you to start acting like a real company, and we're going to cut off the state funds.
That's great. I remember like when in my previous life, I did hair, and I used a processing system. And generally that's something that I wrote off at the end of the year as a cost of doing business. And that's kind of how I've always felt about it. And I know that more and more businesses are pushing this over to consumers,
Yeah.
especially big businesses like DT, utility companies and things like that. And I know that Mop Up Michigan currently has a petition out that would prohibit these regulated corporations and utility companies who have over $250,000 in government contracts from being able to contribute.
Yeah.
And is that something that you think would be helpful? Is that something that you support?
Oh, yes. So at every single I will say, yes, I fully support Mop Up Michigan. I've signed the petition. At every single one of our campaign events, we have people getting signatures. We have that, and we have Invest in My Kids at every single one of our campaign events. My field director is one of the Mop Up Michigan, signature, whatever, she gets signatures for that. And so that's, I think, really important. I am not taking a dime of corporate money, which is going to mean I'll probably come in last in fundraising, but I'm not going to be bought and paid for. When I get elected, I can do what the people ask me to do. And I think that's what we have missed. We've missed that in this district. Our current state rep in the last cycle took 97% of his money came from corporate donors. And I think that that's really important to know. And his voting shows it. And he's a Democrat. And we need people who are not bought and paid for. But that's why we got to get Mop Up Michigan. This is a bipartisan thing. Like, people are saying we need to be more bipartisan, then let's get money out of politics. Citizens United is the worst thing, one of the worst decisions. The Supreme Court makes a lot of bad decisions, but that was a really bad one. And that's something that we've got to take care of at the state level, because the utilities are driving politicians' decisions, and it has to end. They won't even get a meeting with me. It's going to be really hard for them to get a meeting with me.
Speaking of it being bipartisan, I have gone to some of these data center meetings and I collect signatures for Mop Up Michigan.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I'm standing outside of there, everybody, it's one of those unifying things. Republican voters, Democrat voters, all of them have this feeling that their representation is bought and paid for. And it's so funny that it is so bipartisan, and yet it is so difficult to find representation that commits to not being bought and paid for
Yep.
and commits to actually serving the people.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're put in a position where if you are not taking this money, that's a big amount that they tend to donate to people.
Yep, exactly.
And I definitely think that these kind of reforms we're going to see a lot more of, and they are going to be more bipartisan. Like these data centers seem to be a very bipartisan
Yes.
issue for people. And I know that people like Abdul El Sayed have put out sort of like guidelines for if there was a data center. Where are you position wise when it comes to data centers?
Yeah, we are 1 block from Allen Park City Council chambers, right here where we're sitting. They're actually proposing a data center here in Allen Park at the moment. These are not right for the state of Michigan as they currently stand. We don't trust our utility companies. We don't trust them. We have not seen a contract. We don't know what their plans are. But data centers have a lot of red flags. One is that there's not a lot of clarity around their business models, who owns them, right? We have a lot of issues with that. And the usage of water in the area. And there's a lot of questions about air pollution. But I would say the number one thing is that we do not trust their relationships between the utility company. So I am a hard no on data centers as they stand right now, right? Look, this is where I think that we need to slow down. A lot of people just like to get on that partisan train, and if a Democrat says a no, then of course I have to say yes. But if you go into those chambers like we did last month, there was a wide range of political beliefs in that room, all opposed, saying, we don't know where this is going. We don't know where it's going. And so I'm a hard no as it stands right now with these data centers, but we do understand that in 20 years, like data and technology is advancing, and we do understand there's going to be needs. So I think we need to have some pretty robust law centered around regulating where these things go. I think we need distance from population centers for them. Like, for example, right now, the one they're proposing, there's a lot of irony in this. Anybody who knows Allen Park politics will know that they wanted to put a Hollywood studio here in Allen Park, and it completely bombed out. The whole thing fell apart. The city and the county put in millions and millions of dollars of investment into infrastructure, and it fell apart. And the residents were left holding the bag for the costs that didn't come and the income that didn't come. This feels eerily similar. And this data center is within a stone's throw of houses and Melvindale High School. You're talking 24-hour a day sound, right? You've got noise pollution, you've got air pollution, you've got the water usage. These data centers are a hard no as they stand right now.
Do you feel like there is a pathway that can be carved through regulation and holding them accountable? Because I know that a lot of times we have our regular regulations, but it seems like a lot of these companies will come in, and I know people are concerned about, well, if the AI bubble pops, like again, left holding the bag, and then you have this huge center, and who knows what's going on there. And I know that, like, as far as jobs, they create maybe like 20 jobs.
The one here is proposing 25 jobs.
And
what does AI do?
Right.
Gets rid of jobs. How long are those going to last, right? The future, I think that we have to really think about where is all of this going. You really hit on the AI bubble, but I think the path to data centers being welcome into the state of Michigan starts with DTE, and it starts with their business model in general. So when these data centers fail, when the bubble pops, we want DTE to be the one who is taking the loss on that and not pushing those costs onto the people, right? There has to be major reform in how we navigate our utilities. I think that's the beginning of the path. And I think the technology does need to come a bit further before residents are comfortable with it. You know, they talk about these closed loop systems, the water cooling systems. They're not going to take anything from the river. Great. but you still need 900,000 gallons of water. Where is that water coming from? One. And also you're mixing it with a solution called glycol, which is basically antifreeze. And you talk about evaporation. We want to know, is that going to be in the air? Are our children going to be breathing this in? There's a lot of things I think in this technology that needs to change. And if we know anything about digital technology, it changes fast. So I think we need a moratorium in the state of Michigan, statewide. We need statewide law that says no data centers for X amount of years until we see, and then we will reassess in 5 years or 3 to 5 years, right? So that we can see where the technology is and bring the environmental groups in and see like, how are you, what are you seeing here? I talk to our environmental groups all over the place, and they're very concerned even with the advancements in closed loop technology.
And I think that a lot of people, especially after Flint, you know, they have a lot of misgivings, are very concerned because if somewhere comes in and they do pollute the area, you have to find out about it.
Right.
You have to get it out to the light. And then what happens? A lot of these companies, they'll pay the fines or
and they own the politician,
yeah.
right, who holds them accountable.
And at best you get a settlement.
Right.
But that settlement, that company still operates, that company still does that, and that's more like a cost of business for them. It's nothing that actually harms them, and then people's lives are changed forever. So it is refreshing when I've asked some people about data centers, they have been not exactly clear on it. And so it is refreshing to hear someone who does understand the people's deep concern about their environment.
Right.
I mean, as politically divided as Democrats and Republicans are in Michigan with our agriculture, with things that have gone on with our water, with Nestle, with Flint, we are very concerned over our environment in a very bipartisan way on that ground level thing.
Yeah. In Melvindale, which is just up the street from where we are, it's in the shadow of the Marathon refinery plant. If you've ever driven through Detroit, there's this factory that is just smoke 24 hours a day. And that's already what our residents are dealing with, right? And so if you're going to add in more question marks, this gets back to the existential crisis that I'm trained to hear.
Yeah.
The people are crying out, and somebody has to stand up for them. And that's what I'm going to say. Like, they're saying no, so we have to say no,
Right.
as it is right now. Yeah.
And it's great to see because a lot of politicians decide that you don't know what you're talking about. You guys don't know.
Do I know? No.
Does anybody really? If you want to get super existential, we could go on forever. Now, when it comes to housing, especially with the way that things are, and it's funny because I just heard Donald Trump, which I'll give it to him.
Donnie Don, what's he got to say today?
Well, he was talking about the private equity that's buying up these homes, these corporations buying up these single family homes.
Yeah.
You know, and the housing crisis and the cost of living where we are now, and the concern over like Airbnb, which is sort of in that similar frame of you're taking single family housing and using it for your business to make money or buying it up for private equity to cheaply flip it. When it comes to housing and private equity, what are your thoughts on that? What do you feel like Michigan needs to do, or can we do in regards to it?
Well, first of all, Donald Trump has zero credibility in this, right? Because he started off saying that affordability is a hoax, number one. And now he's like, oh, well, Mom Donnie won on it, so maybe it's okay, but it's still a Democratic hoax, right? He's flip-flopped so much on his language. But what's going to happen is when he actually tries to push those policies, all of his private equity cronies are going to cry foul, and he's going to taco out, right? He's going to. So he has no credibility in this fight. But I think what we do need to do is, especially at the state level, when it comes to buying a home, right? Buying a home is a nightmare right now. I mean, my generation our parents are subsidizing our home purchases more than ever, right? I am one of those people who had to have help from family to purchase a home because that's the reality of our economy. We do need a buyers first, a human beings now. Citizens United calls a company a a person, which is total BS. But we need to have a people first mortgage housing market, where we need to have some legislation. This is where I think at the state level we can create some legislation that says, okay, when a house goes on the market, it has to be on the market for X amount of weeks before a private equity or any company entity can even bid on the house. It has to be open to families first before anything can move forward with a corporation. Because what's happened, all these corporations are just buying up these houses and then re-rent and then renting them all out, right? And so I think that's something we really have to make sure that we are prioritizing people over profits of corporations again. Allen Park and a lot of our area here has been contemplating that idea of banning short-term rental, which I think is a great idea. And we have to make sure that we are prioritizing our places to live for families and people looking for homes. And I think we also do need rent control in the state of Michigan. For example, when my whole life fell apart and I had to go kind of rebuild my life, I got an apartment. I got this apartment. It was $1,050 a month. Within 14 months, my rent got jacked up twice to $1,500 a month because of market conditions. We need state law, which we do not have in the state of Michigan, that says rent is capped at between 3 to 4% a year, right, over 12 months. So if you have this, your rent can't go up until 12 months, and it can't be more than 3 to 4%, or whatever that number is. We need to have some kind of control in that. And I think we also need to protect, a big problem we have in our district is slumlords. So we do have a lot of residents who complain about that. We need to have state law that says if you have a maintenance request, you are entitled prorated paused rent for the amount of time your problem is not fixed. And I think that's something we have to get really serious about in the state of Michigan.
Absolutely. The landlord who owns the park that I live in, he is on TikTok, has a lot of followers, but it was a couple years back where our water heater was leaking. And it was leaking, and we kept telling them it was leaking.
Mm-hmm.
And it fell through the floor.
Wow.
And was leaking that gas into our home.
Oh my gosh.
And so, and that story's not unique,
Nope.
but it feels like people don't have any protections. Tenants
Right.
don't have
Right.
protections. And I think I look at like the home market and I think, well, I'll probably never have a home. And people talk about, well, you have to do your own maintenance, but
Which,
I
yeah.
wouldn't let my own water heater fall through my floor.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And I think that it's empowering for people to have a home that appreciates,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
lifts
exactly.
people up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so finding ways to, there's only so many levers you can pull on the housing market at the state level, right? But we can try to create a financial environment for people. I can't even imagine if my rent had only gone up by 3 to 4% in that 12 months, and I had 12 months. Imagine if I didn't have to spend that other $500. I could have saved money for a home. But what was I doing? I was taking that money and handing it over to this company that, what were they, their CEO just wanted to go float on more yachts, right? That's the reality, is that these companies, we're not getting anything in return for the prices going up, but we're in a K-shaped economy. So the CEOs and executives are doing better and better, while the rest of us are doing worse. Enough said about that.
Right? Shockingly, I've made it through a lot of these.
Hopefully I've halfway coherently answered them.
So when it comes to elections in Michigan and feeling sort of trapped in this sort of establishment cycle, I know that with Rank My Vote, they have paused and they plan to relaunch in a year or so. Do you think ranked choice voting is something that can really change the game in Michigan?
Yes, I was really, really bummed when I heard that it was coming off the ballot. I should say this, my my master's degree. I got a master's in theology, but I studied what's known as liberation and queer theology. And so I wholeheartedly reject binary thought. Like it's pain. Binary thought is very painful for me. So like, I think that ranked choice can also solve some other issues in the polarization we find in our politics today. Just yesterday, someone sent me a message on Facebook because I'm a dinosaur and I'm on Facebook, right? So somebody sent me a message on Facebook. And this person had been kind of liking my content, liking it from afar, had said some somewhat affirmative things, and they asked me they slid into my DMs and they asked me, "What party are you?" And I said, "I'm a Democrat." And all of a sudden the tone changed, right? I think what binary choice has done for us in this country, especially where we find ourselves right now in this country, is if you're not with me, you're my enemy. But I think what ranked choice voting could do is it can make us think, you know what? I might be a crazy MAGA Trump. I'm a triple Trumper. I love Trump, but I do kind of like what that liberal trans girl's saying. I'll give her my second choice, right? Or maybe we find ourselves in a place where you're like, you know what? Like, I'm a progressive, but there's that kind of middle of the road person who said some stuff I like. Like, if I can't have this person, I also think this person would be good at the job, right? I think we need to give people more than I'm putting my stake in the sand and this is my only decision and I will defend it with everything I have. I think that ranked choice voting could really change the tone of our politics. Um, and I think that binary thought harms us in more ways than we realize. So going to the ballot box and only being able to pick one person for a position is making us hate our neighbor.
Right.
And we need to fix that. So ranked choice voting has to move forward.
For sure. And I definitely think in Michigan it's a very popular thing. And like you were saying, it's like there's red team, blue team, and you have to pick one. That's
Right.
all it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's what people fall into. And it's not just about winning in a lot of senses for certain people. It is about seeing the other team lose.
Yeah.
And I think if we move away from that, people will start to think, well, what about me?
Yeah.
What do I want? What is best for me and my neighbors? When you move outside of red team, blue team, and more the people's team.
Yeah. Imagine if you could listen to a whole field of candidates and say, I like what that person is saying, and I know that I can pick more than one.
Yeah.
You also have and I think candidates would treat each other in a much different way, right? And I think that that's something we really need in this country. And the state of Michigan should lead the way. Like, we really should. And this is something we've got to get done. And when that ballot initiative comes out again, if and when I'm running again, it will be at all of our campaign events.
And that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
I think that a democracy requires people to be involved and to feel empowered. And obviously that is not the goal of a lot of people who like to be empowered.
Yeah.
But I think it puts us in this position where people are comfortable with authoritarianism and that type of behavior, because as long as I get my end goal, I don't care how I get there.
Right.
And I think that part of that team and polarization contributes to people not really respecting democracy or feeling close to it
Right.
where they feel like they're given a couple options. And I know that, like we talked about earlier before we started, that a lot of people don't even know what's going on in the state.
Right.
Like, I've had to make videos where I'm like, you have U.S. congressional representatives, but then you also have your state ones, and people don't even know who their state rep is.
Yep.
I think that Michigan can really do so much when we find good candidates, when we focus on our own state and the things that we can do here and the way that we can be sort of this bastion in the Midwest for democracy, for progress, for a place that is very cold, but
Yes.
has nice people, and where we can get along. And I think that this polarization has led to people feeling like they can't get around their neighbors. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I'm looking around here and I see all these people sitting near their neighbors, around their neighbors, comfortable in like a third space
Yeah.
together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people are ready to move away from polarization.
Yeah.
People are ready to look at the issues and the deep concerns and who's actually listening to me. I don't care what team you're on.
Yeah.
And I know that the data center thing has been huge about that
Mm-hmm.
because I know that people have heard from some people who are like pro data center, and that has changed the way that they feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's become like this big hot button issue.
Right.
And I think that people are really getting to the point where they want quality.
Yeah.
They want someone real. They want someone who's listening. And like you said, you can hear that. And I think
Yeah.
that resonates with people so much more than what might separate us by identity,
Yeah.
whether that's who we are inside
Right.
and outside or the team that we are on.
Right.
You know?
And I think ranked choice voting it's not going to solve this problem, right? But it can be a nail we take off of the coffin. It can
Right.
be one that we pry off and make it a little bit easier for us to see and hear our neighbor, which to me, in my faith, is really important to be able to ask the question, who is my neighbor? I think removing that polarization helps in that. And it's just more important than ever. You know, the background I come from in a very staunchly evangelical conservative background, right? Before I became a liberal, right?
Hey.
It was very much even as deep as the theology. So I'm always going to come back to theology because I'm a
Right.
seminary grad, right? But it was steeped in black and white. You're either going to heaven or you're going to hell. If you don't choose our path, you're dead to us. You're our enemy. And a lot of this binary choice and polarization comes out of that. And I think the reason I studied what I studied in seminary was a much more spectrum thought of thinking, this is not good and bad. This is, what is the right path? What is our path? And I think that ranked choice will get us there.
And do you find that theology and do you think that's really helped you? I mean, I know that you've said that you can hear that existential, but do you
Yeah.
think it helps you relate to more people than maybe you would otherwise?
Yeah, I think it helps me in a way. My theology has changed a lot. My theology has helped me to stop seeing enemies in the world. My theology used to tell me that there was an enemy out there to seek, kill, and destroy. It was the devil, right? I believed that with all my heart. But when that changed, when that kind of domino fell, I began to stop seeing evil in human beings, and I began to see evil in systems, in broken systems. And I think that's what we need in our public leaders, to stop seeing people as bad and seeing the system as the thing we have to fix rather than the person. And I think that very much equipped me for this stage, and to push back against some of our worst ideas. We hear it every day from the state house we hear politicians all the time saying that human beings are awful and evil. And I don't see that. I see a broken system with good people trying to survive in it. And I think that that's what we need from our leaders, is those who work on the systems to create a better environment for good people to thrive in.
You know, I haven't been a Christian in a very long time, and how I was raised was super, very liberal kind of.
Yeah.
But I've said sometimes, and you don't have to say it, but I've said sometimes that the existence of Donald Trump and the way that he acts and the things that I did gain from church, you could make me believe again that he was the Antichrist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Obama was the Antichrist when I was in church.
And I had said one time that Donald Trump is charismatic, and people got really upset at me
Oh, yeah.
about that. But it's like, to the people he speaks to, they eat it up.
Yeah.
They love it. They think that, They think that he's everything.
Yeah.
And
There is no more influential politician in American history potentially than this man.
oh, for sure, he's definitely out there. He's definitely a force. And I have looked at. I don't know if you've seen much about Anthony Hudson.
Tell me more.
Okay. So Anthony Hudson is running as a Republican, and he's very Trump. He wants to make it so that the state legislature only works part-time. He wants to get rid of property tax. He says that he wants to create something else so that renters are also
Every
paying
one of our
property
cities
tax.
will revolve. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, I do pay property tax. I give the money to my landlord, who then pays property taxes
Right.
with it. So, but I think that, like, when it came to Trump, people really underestimated him because he is such a character. And Anthony Hudson is Trump if Trump was a blue collar individual. So he's been a trucker, he's from Texas, and he was at one of the data center things. He was out in Howell, where I went, and he showed up, came, said his words, made threats, and, like, skedaddled. You got the camera time. But I think that we underestimate this extremism. And I think that when we become, sometimes they talk about being a Big Tent party. And I think that there's this idea that Big Tent means all ideas and not all people. Because there's a difference in allowing in all ideas and then allowing in all people.
Yeah.
Which is kind of when you've talked about how your faith sort of guides you, it seems very people focused, very neighbor focused. And I think that's such a big thing when it comes to your ability to be able to be a good, I guess, politician. When people are actually going to say, "Hey, I like what they're doing," because whether or not they agree with everything that you do,
Yeah.
if in it they can see that what you do is you're trying your best to do what is best for the people, matters so much.
Yeah.
As opposed to corporations. And when it comes to neighbors, I know that we don't have a huge presence in Michigan of ICE or of immigration. But
Yeah.
after seeing, what's gone down in Minneapolis, what is your position on ICE? Are you,
Yeah.
we need to give them body cameras and, like, more funding
Training.
and better training?
Maybe 48 days of training. No.
Right. I'm a cosmetologist and I did 1,500
Yeah,
hours
yeah.
of training, so
No.
I'm better trained.
We need to defund ICE. We need to zero out ICE's funding and abolish them. Now, let me be really clear. I'm not saying CBP.
Right.
I'm not saying Border Patrol. We all want our border to be safe. But we don't want Trump's Gestapo going through our streets and pulling children out of their homes and using them as bait to get to their parents. What is this? What is this country? So at the state level, as the next state representative, I want to push for a statewide ban on the 287G agreement, which gives police departments a contract with the federal agency of ICE. I want to ban that because right now in the city of Taylor, which is right next door to us, they have signed a 287G agreement. And people are nervous. In Lincoln Park and Melvindale, which are two cities in our district here, they're high foreign-born populations. And the fear is high. At the state level, we need a complete ban on local law enforcement involvement with ICE. And I'm done with politicians who want to play the fence on this. Zero out the damn budget and protect us from the federal government. That's what the Second Amendment was for, to protect us from the federal government, right? It's so interesting, that what we are dealing with right now in this country is a tyrannical federal government. And we've got to do something about ICE, and it's got to stop.
And I think it is very interesting to watch people who claim to love the Constitution so much. They talk about their Second Amendment rights.
Yeah.
But it feels like they are comfortable giving away their Fourth Amendment rights.
Mhm.
That they are fine with ICE or police agencies being able to just knock down their door if they think that you are harboring someone in there. Do you see this path as something that moves past immigration and just pulling potential immigrants out of homes to something that, obviously we care about the immigrants and that is enough, but some people don't. Do you think it gets to a point where they're pulling not regular, but residents and people who are born here out of their homes without any cause?
Yeah. I can tell you, as a trans person living in this country, there's a lot of fear of that in our country, in our state. I talk to trans people, queer people all the time who fear that one, their healthcare is going to get taken away, right? Like hormone replacement therapy saved my life, right? If I can't access it, right? What do I have to do? I have to go underground to get it. What happens if I do that? Am I breaking the law? Then we can get thrown in jail, right? That is a real fear that many people in the queer community have. And absolutely, I mean, even somebody on my campaign team went on a vacation to see their family in Canada, and they were really nervous that they were going to be able to get back in the country because of their social media.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Thankfully, this person got back into the country, but they are very critical of the Trump administration. You have to show, what is it, 10 years of, uh, if you're not a non-US citizen, you have to show 10 years of social media history. What the hell kind of country are we living in?
Right.
This is wild. This is not the America we were promised. And so we at the state level, we've got to grow a pair and stand up against Trump and all of this crap.
Do you feel like there are other candidates that are coming into 2026 that are running or are already in office that you feel like are doing a great job, that you feel like you could connect really well with? Or
Yeah, there's a few like state reps that I've gotten to know very well over this process. Some people that really stand on their stand their ground. I think of Lori Pohutsky, who is an amazing state representative. I think of Jason Morgan. I think of Donovan McKinney. I think of Jennifer Conlon, who I've gotten to know. These are folks that are representing some pretty wildly diverse political environments. You think of the counties that they work in. They're very diverse politically, but they're doing the work and they're standing up. And when the votes come in the state house that make you just scratch your head, they're always standing on the right side of that vote. And and I think of Senator Stephanie Chang, who is a leading voice. Carrie Reidigans, who I will be visiting with tomorrow night at an event. These are people that I see doing some amazing work in our state government. Darren Camilleri, who's in the area here, is always a leading voice. There's a lot of great Democrats in our area. And I just think that we need to push more bold Democrats into the fold with them. If we can get a stronger force covering the state, I think that we can have a stronger force of Democrats who are going to push harder against the worst ideas we have in this state and in this country.
And one of the things that I've found in researching candidates and looking at all these different districts and who's running is, like you said, we have some really great people who are really doing really great work in Michigan. And I know that in this time, people feel very, I guess, defeated. And I think that we can really shine a light on people who are saying, don't be defeated. Yeah. I am here and I am working for you and I am here to make a difference. And I think we do. We have at least a handful of really great people who do some really great stuff. And I would love for people to see them and to really get involved and know what's going on. And I think that would help. I think that fear makes people feel defeated.
Yeah.
And it is not motivating.
Yeah.
And I think that hope and possibility really motivates people to get out and get involved. Yeah. Is that something that you've kind of seen?
Oh gosh, that is the number one reason that I think hope and believing that change can happen comes when you have access to your leadership and your leadership is present. I think one of the number one reasons people feel so hopeful is because they voted for someone and they never see this person, right? They only see him on a news article.
Like John James.
Right. Like, I think that people need to see and they need to be able to come up to you in the flesh and say, Liz, I'm worried. what is happening and to like look at you face to face and share what they're worried about with you. But if you're just sitting in your ivory tower and you're casting your vote and you're talking to your press conference, like, you know, you're not giving people access, and you're not able to look at them in the eye and say, I hear you, I've got you, I'm going to fight for you. You know, I think that we're missing that in our politicians, and that's something I really want to change. And I'm hoping that my candidacy and my election to be, you know, we're going to will that into the universe. Like, that's what I want to change. I want to, even after being elected, I want to come to this coffee shop. I want to sit here when I'm not in session, and I want people to come up to me and say, can I sit with you for 5 minutes? I'll say, sit with me for 10 and tell me everything. You know, like, that's what we're missing in our politicians. And I think that that's how we instill the hope, is to say, I've got you. Like, I know you put your trust in me. I'm not always gonna do perfect, but you can at least come and talk to me face to face.
And coming up, if people want to connect with you face to face in the coming weeks, where can they find you? Where are you going to be?
Yes, great question. At the beginning of this, you know, let me say this. We have a very active campaign, and things change a lot. So the best thing they can do is find me on social media, Joanna Whaley, like the animal with a Y at the end, official on all my networks. Find me there. And we post a lot of our events, like upcoming public events. If you show up at any event in the community where there's just people gathered, there's a good chance that I'll probably show up. But you can also reach out to me directly on all the social media channels. You can go to joannawhaley.com. There's a contact button there. We're a very accessible campaign. I'm a very accessible candidate. If somebody wants to sit and have coffee with me, I will do it. We will make that happen. And so find me on social media, go to joannawhaley.com, and just keep sharing the content so we can get it all out there.
I try to share as much as I can. I mean, of a lot of candidates, but
I know.
You know, my goal, it's a little selfish, just to get progressives in, because I want to see that new vision of Michigan. It's not about the money. It's deeper and more nefarious.
Yeah. The $5 you get from TikTok, right? Yeah.
You know, it's like when someone said, oh, you're here to make money. And it's like, no, it's worse. I'm here to change the state.
Yeah.
And I might not, maybe that sounds arrogant, but I think that bringing candidates to the people, telling people, here are great people that you can connect with, who are here to work for you. I feel called to that in a way that, you know, just kind of fell into my lap, just kind of happened.
And you're doing a great job. Seriously though, like, you're doing an amazing job, and the work that you're doing in our state has informed me. And I want you to know that, like, candidates are noticing your work, and politicians are noticing your work, and your work matters. So keep going. Thank you.
I do. You know, and I know how it is, because, you know, you say that you're getting into this for the people, because people wanted you to do it. And when I started doing this, like, the response that I got from people was so huge. And it's like, I felt like I was feeling a need, you know? And I think more candidates and more people who feel like they're feeling a need and doing something in their community, you know, coming together. I think that how individuals feel all bad, I think it hurts. I think it's lonely.
Yeah.
And I think that connection is so important.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want voters to know about you? Any important things that you want to say? Anything that...
Yeah, we've talked about a lot, but I just want you to know that, you know, we are living in a time that is not normal. And we all know that. And I want you to know that I'm here. I'm here for the purposes of leading and representing you. I'm not here to represent myself. I'm not here to build fame. I'm not here to, because I do think that that's sometimes the goal of some politicians, is that they're just trying to build a name, or this is a career, or this is a retirement gig for some. You know, like, I think that I am here because I want to serve you. And that's what I grew up learning my whole life from my family, into my training was to serve people. And I will do that. And whether you like my politics, whether you like that I'm trans, whether you like how I show up in the world, who I love, how I vote, just know that I'm gonna be here for you and I'm gonna listen to you even if I disagree with you. And that's what I hope everybody walks away with. This is about more than just making headlines. This is about doing things that help everyday people in our district.
And the last question I have for you is one that I've heard posed to some candidates who have sort of struggled to give an answer.
Uh-oh.
Which, when you hear the question, it's obviously something that I don't think is that difficult. But let's say you get elected and the Michigan State House, the state Senate, all blue, the governor blue, and you have the ability to pass anything you want. I mean, your dream stuff that you would just top of the list love to pass. What is like your top 3 or 5 things
Yeah.
that if you could pass anything,
Yep.
if you could create that vision for Michigan, what does it look like?
Yeah. I think the number one thing would be protecting Michigan workers from bad corporate behavior. So, passing some strong legislation about pay, passing some really strong legislation to protect people from layoff for profit. These are some laws that I would love to see implemented in our state to protect our people, to take some of the great work our unions have done and actually bring it into state policy. That would be one of the first ones I'd want to see. I want to see DTE completely off of the state's budget, and I want them to be completely on their own as a business. So we're going to end the guaranteed profit for DTE. That would be another one. I would want to end the 287G. I want to end local police and federal agency cooperation with ICE and immigration. I really would like to see the state of Michigan be a sanctuary place for LGBTQ people and minorities who are targeted by the federal government. We need to make sure that all marriages are safe in this state. We need to make sure that all of our hospital systems restore gender affirming care that they are legally supposed to do by the state of Michigan law. I have a laundry list, so I hope I answered more than you expected. There's so many things that we should be doing, but that foundation of making sure that people are protected. And I think one of the number one things is protecting people from this tyrannical government right now that we find ourselves in, and making sure that they can earn a living and get ahead. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I look forward to you winning your election and being in our state legislature. I look forward to seeing your career and all the things that you do. And I'll be talking about you, so.
Oh.
So I got my eye. But thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Yes.
And this opportunity.
And come for the free parking anytime. The end?
The end.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
I try not to be super awkward.
Before we go, is there anything that you want to just plug yourself, zoom in on you, and just talk about yourself? You can hold the glass.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Joanna Whaley.
Yeah, kind of introduce yourself, give me a little blurb, and just plug yourself, who you are.
Oh, okay. Give me a second. You really put me on the spot there.
Next time you could send me the questions.
Right. I'll kind of do what I do on a TikTok video. I'll just introduce myself. Patrick is my researcher, by the way.
That's good.
Patrick makes sure, as I said, Patrick makes sure that I know what I'm talking about. And Patrick does an amazing job.
And
I'm not as smart as I play sometimes.
She's underselling it. She's coming with this knowing a lot more that she's letting on.
but knowing what you don't know and being able to find someone who helps you with that, I think a lot of the people just generally, as well as politicians, it's they think they know everything and
I don't know shit. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna do this. I'm ready. What's that?
I said, make sure you plug your switch to go to the
Thank you. See, what would I do without them?
Same.
Whenever you're ready.
These are not normal times. I'm Joanna Whaley. I'm running for the Michigan House of Representatives to represent Allen Park, Lincoln Park, Melvindale, and Southgate, Michigan. Many times we just look at the world around us and we think that politics has forgotten about us, that all politicians are corrupt and they don't care about us. I'm hoping to change that narrative in our community. Our community has been asking for leaders to be present and accountable and accessible. That's what I hope to do. Find me at joannawhaley.com. Reach out to me. Let's talk. Is that good?
Yeah, it was great.
Okay. Short, to the point.
Short to the point, sweet,
Yeah.
perfect.
The hard part is doing videos in a minute. I've gotten really good at that with my TikTok
Yeah.
because every video is a minute. Because I put it on all the other channels that only allow for a minute. People are like, why don't you say more? I'm like, well, I can't get any more in a minute, you know?
Talk about everyone training.
Okay.
I'm just here.
Thank you so